It's music theory. Online, let's learn some theory. Online, by watching modules. Online, with music theory. Online.
What we're going to be talking about today are diatonic scales. In diatonic scales, every note is different. Remember that when we talked about diatonic half-steps or semitones, we always had a different letter name. With diatonic scales, we also have a different letter name for each degree of the scale. What determines the type of diatonic scale is the order of half-steps and whole steps, or tones and semitones. The order of tones and semitones in a major scale is totally different than that of a minor scale. Even within a minor scale, each type of minor scale has a different order of half-steps and whole steps. Here we see C major scale. We have a whole tone from C to D, a whole tone from D to E, a half step from E to F, then a whole step from F to G, from G to A, and from A to B. Then we have a semitone from B to C. This order of half steps and whole steps, or tones and semitones, is always the same for the major scale. Here's a little saying that may help you remember the order of tones and semitones, or whole steps and half steps, especially if you like eating waffles. Waffle, waffle house, waffle, waffle, waffle house. That means we have whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Doesn't that make it easier to remember the order? There are very important steps to remember when you're writing any scale. Make sure your notes are evenly spaced and are written clearly. Sometimes I find it really helpful to write the first note of the scale, the last note of the scale, and the dominant. Remember that the dominant is the fifth note of the scale. That will help you with the spacing out of the other notes. Remember, you also must add a double bar line at the end of your scale. Often you'll be asked to mark the semitones or half steps with a slur, so don't forget to do that. You may be asked to write scales with a given time signature. Be careful that you're doing the correct grouping of notes and following the time signature. Don't forget to beam the notes correctly and add the proper bar lines. Often, when you're asked to write a scale with a time signature, you'll need to add rests at the end of your scale. Neatness is very important in music, so remember to write as neatly and as accurately and clearly as you can. I know you know this, but I think it's important that we review it. The tonic is the first note of the scale, the dominant is the fifth note of the scale, and the subdominant is the fourth note of the scale. This relationship is very, very important in all keys. The tonic is the most important note in any key, the dominant is the next important note, and the subdominant is the third important note. It's really cool. When you go down a fifth from the tonic, that's also the subdominant. Let's just look at why that tonic-dominant relationship is so important. Let's begin with just playing the first four notes of the C major scale. Within the first four notes, you have a semitone between E and F. The tones and semitones in these first four notes are tone, tone, semitone. Now let's look at the upper four notes of the C major scale. The order of tones and semitones are the same. Tone, tone, semitone. Isn't that neat? When we divided the scale into two equal halves like this, each section or each half is called a tetrachord. The first four notes make up the lower tetrachord, and the top four notes make up the upper tetrachord. Remember I said the second most important note in the C major scale is the dominant, which is G. See how G is the first note of the upper tetrachord of the C major scale. When you look at dividing your scale into two tetrachords, you'll start to see why the dominant is so important in every key and how the circle of fifths fits together. We've already divided C major into two tetrachords. The first note of the upper tetrachord in C major is G. The upper tetrachord in C major, which begins on G, is also the lower tetrachord of the G major scale. Remember, though, that we need a semitone from the 7th to the 8th degree in the G major scale. When we write our upper tetrachord, that's how we arrive at the F sharp in the key signature for the key of G major. When you take the upper tetrachord of G major scale, we have the lower tetrachord of the D major scale, and that's the dominant or the fifth of G major. When we write the D major scale, we need to have a semitone or a half step in the upper tetrachord from the 7th note to the 8th note. In order to have that semitone, it's necessary to raise C to C sharp. See how the circle of fifths works? In C major, we have no sharps or flats. In G major, we have one sharp, F sharp. And in D major, we have two sharps, F sharp and C sharp. In every major scale, when you go to the dominant can become the lower tetrachord of the next scale. Beginning with C major, which has no sharps or flats, we move to the dominant, which is G. In G major, we must add F sharp in order to have a semitone from the 7th degree to the 8th degree of the scale. In order for that to happen, G major has one sharp, which is F sharp. When we go to the 5th note, or the dominant of G major, we discover that that note is D. In order for us to have a semitone or a half step from the 7th to the 8th note, it's necessary to raise the C to C sharp. As a result, D major has two sharps, F sharp and C sharp. When we go to the 5th note of the D major scale, we arrive on A. In order to have a semitone between the 7th and 8th degree of the scale, we must raise G to G sharp. This means A major has three sharps, F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. Let's just do one more. The 5th note or upper tetrachord of A major begins on E, which is the dominant of A major. In order for our semitones to be in the correct place, we must raise D to D sharp. Our key signature for E major is four sharps, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp. See why the dominant is so important. Here's exactly what we're talking about. C major has 0 sharps or 0 flats. The dominant of C major is G major, which has one sharp. The dominant of G major is D major, which has two sharps. The dominant of D major is A major, which has three sharps. The dominant of A major is E major, which has four sharps. To go even further, the dominant of E major is B major, which has five sharps. The dominant of B major is F sharp, which has six sharps, and the dominant of F sharp major is C sharp, which has seven sharps. The subdominant is next in importance. If you count down 5 steps in C major, you'll be on F. F is the subdominant of C major, and F has one flat, B flat. When you count down 5 steps in F major, you'll be on B flat. B flat major has two flats, B flat and E flat. When you go down 5 notes in the B flat major scale, you'll be on E flat, which is the subdominant. E flat major has 3 flats, B flat, E flat, and A flat. When you go down 5 notes in E flat major, you'll be on A flat, and A flat has 4 flats, B flat, E flat, A flat, and D flat. Each time you're adding a flat. See how that works? Here's the complete circle of fifths. In the outer purple rim, you'll see how it moves up 5 letter names. As you move to the right, with each key, you're adding a sharp. At the top, where we have C major, there are no sharps. Next is G major with 1 sharp, then D major with 2 sharps, A major has 3 sharps, and E major has 4 sharps. At the B major spot, we have 5 sharps. At F major, we have 6 sharps, and at C sharp major, we have 7 sharps. When you get to the bottom, at the 6 o'clock spot, you'll notice some enharmonic notes. F sharp and G flat are enharmonic twins, and C sharp and D flat are also enharmonic twins. Take a look here where B major is. It also has an enharmonic twin, which is C flat major. I bet you didn't know that some of the keys had enharmonic twins. See how important it is to be able to find the enharmonic notes. Remember how we found the subdominant notes? At the top of our circle of fifths, you'll see when you move to the left, we see F major. If you continue to count down 5 steps, that will give you the left-hand side of the circle of fifths. What's really neat is that you can start at C and continue going to the right, and eventually you'll end up back at C. Since we've already covered C major and E major a few times, let's start with B major now. The dominant of B major is F sharp. Don't forget that F was raised to F sharp in the G major key. The key of F sharp major has 6 sharps. Another name for F sharp major is G flat major. If we take all the sharps and rename them enharmonically to be flat keys, we would have 6 flats instead of 6 sharps. Those flats would be B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, and C flat. Let's look at the enharmonic twins of those notes. Another name for B flat is A sharp. E flat is the same as D sharp. A flat and G sharp are enharmonic twins. D flat and C sharp are the same, and G flat and F sharp are twins. If you go to the fifth of the scale of F sharp major, we would be on C sharp. That's as far as our sharp keys go. C sharp major and D flat major are enharmonic twins. Remember that C sharp major has F, C, G, D, A, E, and B sharp. D flat major has B, E, A, D, and G flat. B flat and C sharp, E flat and D sharp, A flat and G sharp, D flat and C sharp, G flat and F sharp are all enharmonic twins. You may wonder why C sharp major has 7 sharps and D flat major has only 5 flats. That's because E sharp and F, as well as B sharp and C, are enharmonic twins. When we start out on the flat side of the circle of fifths, we'll be decreasing the number of flats each time. The dominant of D flat major is A flat, which has 4 flats: B flat, E flat, A flat, and D flat. The dominant of A flat major is E flat, which has 3 flats: B flat, E flat, and A flat. The dominant of E flat major is B flat. B flat major has 2 flats, B and E flat. The dominant of B flat major is F. F major has 1 flat, B flat. The dominant of F major is C. Isn't that cool? We're right back to C major, which has no sharps and no flats. In addition to the tonic, dominant, and subdominant, there are technical names for all the other degrees of the scale. The mediant is on the 3rd degree of the scale. The word media sounds like middle and is in the middle between the most important degree of the scale, the tonic, and the second most important degree of the scale, the dominant. The submediant is in the middle between the tonic and the subdominant when you go down, and it's the 6th degree of the scale. The supertonic is the 2nd degree of the scale. Super means above, so the supertonic is above the tonic. The leading note is the 7th degree of the scale, and it leads to the tonic. Sometimes the 7th degree is called the leading note, and sometimes it's called the leading tone. The technical degrees are tonic, supertonic, mediant, subdominant, dominant, submediant, and leading note. You should already be very comfortable with the terms tonic, dominant, subdominant, and leading note. Really, the only new terms are supertonic, the second degree, mediant, the third degree, and submediant, the sixth degree. It's easiest just to memorize these technical names: tonic, supertonic, mediant, subdominant, dominant, submediant, leading note. While we've been working on the circle of fifths, we've been discussing how many sharps and how many flats are in each key. However, we really haven't talked about how to remember the order of those sharps and flats. It's extremely important that the key signatures are written correctly. You must know the order of the sharps and flats, and they must always draw them in the right spot on the grand staff. The sharps and flats in the key signature should be written on the correct lines and spaces. All sharps or flats written in the key signature must be written in a specific order. The order of the sharps are F, C, G, D, A, E, and B. The order of the flats are B, E, A, D, G, C, F. Did you notice the order of the flats is the same as the sharps, except reversed? There's a saying that may help you remember the order of sharps and flats. For the sharps, we can say Father Charles goes down and ends battle. When you say this backwards, battle ends and down goes Charles's father, that gives you the correct order for the flats. Here we have all the sharp key signatures written out. Make sure that the spikes on the sharps are long enough. It's really important that you memorize this pattern. The only one that you might find a little tricky is when you write E sharp. Make sure you write the E sharp in this space. Here we have the correct placement for all the flats. The last flat, F, is written in this space. Again, we have all the sharps and all the flats written here on the grand staff. There's a simple way of finding the key without having to write out all the circle of fifths. Remember how in a major key that you always have a semitone between the 7th and the 8th degree? By using that knowledge, the reverse of that means that the last sharp in your key signature would be the raised 7th or leading note. That means if you look at the last sharp and go up a semitone, that will give you the key. In this example, the last sharp is also the only sharp. We simply go up a diatonic half step or semitone from this F sharp to G. This is the key signature for G major. For this key signature, the last sharp is C sharp. Simply go up a diatonic semitone to D. This is the key signature for D major. Our next key signature ends with G sharp. A semitone above this sharp is A, so this is the key signature for A major. E major has 4 sharps. The last sharp is D. A semitone above D sharp is E. Here the last sharp is A. A semitone above A sharp is B. So this is the key signature for B major. Here a semitone above E sharp is F sharp, so this is the key signature for F sharp major. In this last example, a semitone above B sharp is the key of C sharp major. If you need to write the key signature, you're going to do the opposite. Just go down a semitone from the key, and that will give you the last sharp. A semitone below D major is C sharp, so D major has F sharp and C sharp. A semitone below A major is G sharp, so A major would have F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. The key signature for E major will have D sharp as its last sharp, so it will have F, C, G, and D sharp. A semitone below B major is A sharp, so B major will have F, C, G, D, and A sharp. A semitone below F sharp major is E sharp. Remember, we need to make sure that it's a diatonic semitone. Since the last sharp is E, we know that F sharp major will have F, C, G, D, A, and E sharp. Our last key is C sharp major. A semitone below C sharp is B sharp. So C sharp major has F, C, G, D, A, E, and B sharp. When you're looking at key signatures for the flat keys, simply ignore the last flat. F major is the exception. It's just best to remember that F major has a B flat. Here we have two flats. Just ignore the last flat, and that will mean that this key signature is for B flat major. Our next key signature is three flats. The second last flat is E flat, so this is the key signature for E flat major. Next we have four flats. Just put your finger over that last flat, and that will give you the key, A flat major. The next key has five flats. We'll ignore the last flat, which is G flat. That would make this the key of D flat major. To find the key signature for a given key, you're going to add a flat. G flat major would have all of the flats up to G plus one more. So that means G flat major would have B, E, A, D, G, and the added C flat. C flat major would have B, E, A, D, G, C, and the added flat F. Do you see how this works? Spend some time on this slide to make sure that it makes sense to you. You know you can always pause the module so you can work on it a little bit more. If you have trouble with this, please let me know and we can work through this together. To summarize what we've learned, if you're asked to write a key signature for a key that has sharps, go down a semitone and that will give you the last sharp. If you're given the key signature and have to identify the key, go up a semitone from the last sharp and that will give you the name of the major key. If you're asked to write a key signature for a key that has flats in it, simply add a flat. If you're given the key signature and have to identify the key, just ignore that last flat. I'm hoping that this is clear for you, and as I said before, let me know if I can help you. This module was huge and we covered a lot of material, so that means that we have a lot to review. You may find it helpful to go over this module a number of times, or even just to go over smaller sections of this module. What makes our diatonic scales unique is the order of tones and semitones, or whole steps and half steps. In the major scale, we have the semitones between the third and the fourth, and the seventh and the eighth degrees. We can divide the major scale into a lower tetrachord and an upper tetrachord, and each tetrachord has the same order of tones and semitones. The tetrachords also demonstrate the importance of that tonic-dominant relationship. It's important for you to know all of the technical names for the degrees of the scale. You already know the tonic. The second degree is the supertonic, and supertonic means right above the tonic. The third degree of the scale is the mediant. Mediant means middle, so the mediant is between the tonic and the dominant, right in the middle. The subdominant is the fourth degree of the scale, and you know the fifth is the dominant. The submediant falls between the subdominant and tonic and is on the sixth degree of the scale, and the leading note is the seventh degree, because it leads directly to the tonic. If you're asked to write a key signature for a key that has sharps, just go down a semitone, and that's going to give you the last sharp. If you're given the key signature and need to identify the key, just go a semitone up from that last sharp. If you have to find a key signature that has flats in it, just go beyond the flats by one name. If you're given the flats and must identify the key signature, just cover up that last flat and that will give you the key. There was a lot of material to cover in this one module. The beauty of our program is that you can watch this as many times as you need to. You can also ask me any questions anytime. Remember, I'm here to help you every step of the way. You can also ask questions at our theory club. Sometimes the best way to understand this module is for you to complete your assignments. Practicing will help solidify your knowledge. Again, let me repeat that I'm here to help you every step of the way. Keep working on your assignments and have a super-duper week. Bye now.
It's music theory. Online, let's learn some theory. Online, by watching modules. Online, with music theory. Online.